From South Florida, I'm Dave.
And here in Dallas, I am Q.
All right, so Q, let's talk about sprint planning. If your team is doing Scrum, it's the first event at the beginning of the time box we call a sprint. What is sprint planning and how can it help make a team successful for the sprint?
Well, we have a video about backlog refinement.
Yes, we do. I'll put the link in the description.
So start there. The reason I say start there is if your backlog refinement is less than ideal, which in the vernacular translates to it sucks, your sprint planning is going to be less than ideal, aka it sucks. So start with backlog refinement. If you invest in backlog refinement, your sprint planning should be a breeze. It should be like, bang, we're done. So first thing is learn how to do good backlog refinement. You're going to be very happy that you did. Once you get to that nail, the rest is very simple.
Actually, I think we have multiple videos because I remember we have another one called flat tire teams, right? And this is the phenomenon that we notice that if your sprints for your team are just like you're running in circles, right? And it's just like your team is just feeling like we're not really doing anything or getting anywhere as the race is so hard. And that's because you're not doing backlog refinement. So what does it all mean? Like when a team has items in their backlog that are refined, what would that look like?
Well, they obey a definition of ready, right? Which is inspired by definition of done. If you look at the Scrum guide, they don't mention definition of ready. It's a practice that grew up of people using and say, hey, that actually works, right? Because we have to do some pre-work before planning. So we know, hey, okay, this looks like, I think we know enough or we know as much as we can know before we start. Of course, I'm not going to come here and say some things are not going to surprise, because they do, right? That's life. But the more diligence you do, the more people understand things, the more they can understand the size, etc., etc., etc. It's going to be easy to plan. And the reason I'm so adamant about this is experiences. A long time doing
you've
that.
You've done this for a while, so have I.
Yeah.
And
yep. So
yeah, I mean, this is where, now in backlog refinement, we don't want to get into the how, right? We want to understand the what, and we want to get to the point where the team has enough to give an agile estimate, normally story points or some other. We don't want to make the refinement process too detailed. We're just creating phase gates all over again, like we used to do in waterfall. And then we're just, that's kind of defeating the purpose. But at the same time, when we get to sprint planning, that's where this is going to come in handy, because if you've already had a lot of the discussions out of the way on the what, now you can talk about the how. We've got a 1 week, 2 week, 3 week sprint, whatever, up to a month, right? Now we can talk about, oh, well, who's going to do what exactly? And what's that going to look like exactly? And maybe even break it down into tasks, right? Where normally a story is, kind of like an outcome, but now we want to peel off different tasks and assign them to people. Don't have to do that, but especially for a new team, that may help to clarify. It is a plan for a sprint. However long your sprint is, that is the plan. You're coming up with a plan.
Exactly. And that plan may have to be adapted every day. That's why we have a daily scrum, right?
A daily scrum.
To adapt the plan. But I think where things go wrong is, one is the lack of refinement. Or refinement turns into a design meeting. And so anyway, it's the lack of proper refinement. The second thing that people apparently have a way to complicate, and it's amazing how people can complicate stuff, it's how much work can we bring to the sprint? And people love to complicate that. I've seen people with Excel spreadsheets and all that stuff. And my opinion, I think Excel is a plague, because if we get rid of Excel, corporate America is going to come to a standstill. I'm not saying it's not a useful tool, but it's misused so often it's not even fun. In the past, I've seen several teams that come to me and said, so Q, we're having trouble figuring out our capacity for the sprint, right? And I have a few easy ideas. Well, think about this. On average, when there's no vacations, no holidays, nothing went wrong, everything is great, how much stuff that you did during a sprint? You can count items, you can count story points, I don't know, but you have a quantity. Right?
Got something.
You have a quantity of something. So let's call it 20. When everything goes right, you can do 20 things, whatever you want to call them. Great. So anybody traveling? No. Anybody go on vacation? No. So what we do, we pull 20 things into the sprint because we know when everything goes well, that's going to happen.
You do
Right?
20, and we've proven it.
And we prove it. Now, Q, what if something doesn't go well? Okay, hold on. Hold that thought. Now, the second situation is, hey, anybody going on vacation? Oh, yeah, Dave is going on vacation. Q is going to work. So Dave is going to be in sunny Florida and Q is working. Today's a holiday, by the way, for him, not for me. So I tell my teams, so we are all working except Dave. What happens to the quantity when Dave goes on vacation for one day? Oh, Q, instead of 20, I think we would do 18 things. Okay, there's your answer for the capacity.
Run with that.
That's it. Oh, no, but it's not only Dave. Little Joe is going out too. I said, for what? Well, another day too. Okay, so if Dave takes 2, another 2, let's go to 16. We're done. And I see people trying to calculate hours and going to Excel spreadsheets and doing all sorts of crazy things, right? Mind you, these people are forgetting it's an estimate. In case you didn't remember, it's an estimate. So don't try to come up with false precision because it's not going to work. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, what happens when things don't go very well? I call them shoulder taps. Hey, there's something wrong in production. Can you guys take a look in there? Or, hey, some C-level person wants this thing as an emergency. They say it's an emergency, right? So those things mess up the planning. Of course they do. But again, I go back to historical data. So, guys, last time you guys got a shoulder tap, what happened? Instead of 20, how much did you end up doing? Oh, man, we were really messed up in our predictions. So it was like 14. Okay. So you know that when things go bad, it's 14, right? Okay. So that was a one time. Yeah. So on average about 3. Okay, good. So let's do this. Subtract Dave's vacation. Subtract little Joe's vacation. That's 16. You guys know that when things go bad, it's 3. We're down to 13. So what you guys do? Grab enough stuff, grab enough things. I don't know what unit you're using. I don't care. To make 13. And then, but Q, we know we can do 16. Yeah, but if there is a shoulder tap, you can only do 13, right? But wait a minute. What happens if the sprint ends and we didn't have any shoulder tap? Well, it's very simple. You just go there and say, you know what? Let's get done all the 13 stuff that we have. Okay. Are we done? Yeah. Well, it's 3 days before the end of the sprint, right? Yeah. Grab something else from the backlog that should have been refined, by the way.
Yeah. Yep, exactly.
If you
can
get
always pull from the backlog if you get done early.
Yeah. And if you don't get to the shoulder tap, you end up doing 16, 17, 18, maybe even 20. It depends, right?
Mm-hmm.
And your velocity is going to go up the next sprint, right? Now, if you get to the shoulder tap, great. You know what? We committed to a sprint goal without those extra things. We've only did the things we're doing. That's it. Honestly, if sprint planning takes more than 15 minutes by doing this, I would be very surprised because I never met any of my teams once they got refinement doing really well to spend more than 15 minutes planning.
I've never seen 15 minutes, or maybe I've seen it rarely, but it shouldn't go up to the recommended amount in the Scrum guide either. So like for a 1-month sprint, basically it's 1 day, 8 hours, right? But backlog refinement makes a tremendous difference. And, I summarize this all up with 2 words: quick and reliable, right? If your estimation process is quick, maybe because it's on a spreadsheet, but it's not reliable because you're getting into the weeds and it's letting you down, like forget the spreadsheet. It doesn't have to be precise. It has to be accurate.
Exactly. And
it has to say, it allows the team to pull in enough, because what's one of the major Scrum patterns that that are key to high-performing teams or high-performing teams. Teams that finish early accelerate faster.
Because
If teams can get to the point where they know how much they can pull in and deliver that much every sprint, and if they have to, they can go to the backlog. If they still have time, they get the confidence. Their teamwork is excelling, and we're gonna see this acceleration effect. And so what we're saying here, and with your tips, right? This is the key here: backlog refinement and good sprint planning will maximize, what can be done in that sprint, but make it predictable, quick, and reliable.
absolutely. And it all goes down to get the pre-work done, which is refinement. And if you task, you can even task during refinement. Actually, it doesn't even need to be in a meeting, right? You can task asynchronously.
Yeah, right.
The whole point is, when you're doing planning, you basically have a gun pointed at your head, right? Because you have to start the sprint. So if you have a lot of stuff already lined up, yeah, it takes 15 minutes, take 20 minutes at most. I've seen that with hundreds of teams, because they are not desperate. Oh man, we have to start the sprint, and we don't have anything. I had teams which are very, very novice, they're greenhorns, right? That they went to sprint planning with no backlog. And what do we do now? Well, this is going to be a very long meeting, guys. So just think about that.
Probably, we're all remote and stuff like that. Nowadays, I haven't been doing agile work as much as you have. But I kind of wonder, back in the day when everybody was co-located in the same room, if that really made it easier. I'm wondering now, since, we're mostly remote or hybrid and doing things over Zoom, maybe just walking up to teammates and say, hey, can we talk about this backlog item or whatever? Maybe a lot of that's being missed these days. I'm just thinking out loud.
Yeah, maybe. I think you have to approach people. Just because they're remotely or a few states apart, it doesn't mean that you cannot approach them.
Well, that's true with Teams and chat and
Zoom
and all that,
stuff.
right?
So it maybe it's not as physical as used to be. That I used to go walk to somebody's desk and say, hey, but it's not that different.
Yeah.
Right? And there are lots of things that can be done asynchronously. For instance, you're going to task an item in a backlog. If you use tasks, not everybody does, right?
Right.
You don't need to do that with 20 people in the room with you.
Right.
Right? You can just say, hey guys, I have a few tasks for this stuff. Can you guys take a look and see if I missed something?
I don't even think you need to really come up with a plan. I've worked with teams before. Let's just plan the next 3 days. If it was a 2-week sprint, right? But they still felt confident because of what we're talking about. They looked at the data with story points or counting stories or whatever, and that seemed to work too. So this is where, new teams tell us exactly what to do. Like, I'll give you some ideas or some guidelines, but really you as a team
have to figure it out.
Will come up with your own way of doing it that's going to work. And that's much better than just following a recipe every time. And then you kind of feel like, this isn't working. What's going on? So
absolutely. So I think that's
there you go, folks. Sprint planning and backlog refinement, 2 critical keys to success. Getting your teams to deliver what your customer wants every time. So thanks for watching. Put stuff in the comments, like and subscribe, or all that stuff that the kids say these days. Thanks for watching. Until next time, bye-bye.